Peace and grand rising to the sovereign, original, indigenous, natural divine heirs. Today is April the 8th, 1442 on the ancient moon calendar and 2021 on the Greco-Roman calendar. We just were having the discussion about old business and new business. And I'm seeing a pattern that's probably not going to make some feel comfortable, but I have to tell you what I'm seeing because, you know, I think that it's important that we stay open about what we're seeing, and some may be seeing something different. And if you're seeing something different, just you know, chime in at any time. What I'm seeing is this, that the things that were gotten with in our fleet with contracts without full disclosure, we know that we didn't get full disclosure, but I'm seeing that the things for some people, because it's not for all Moors, but for some Moors, and I don't know how the ancestors choose which ones are going to be tested this way or not, but for some Moors, I'm seeing that if they got something in the corporate status that in many cases, okay, I can't even say many, I'll just say some cases, because it's not, again, not everybody that I'm seeing, but in some cases, the corporates are coming back for those things, and they're finding ways to take those things away. The things that were gotten with some Moors, it's not all Moors. But I wanted to at least put it out there because I think it's important that we talk about whatever it is that we see. And, you know, at least make a note of it so that if that happens, we will know, we will be in preparation with our study to, you know, to do something about it. But I am seeing that for some people, for some, if something was obtained with a corporate contract, that the hybrid, the corpses come back and get it. And I don't know how they choose that because it doesn't happen to everybody. It just happens to some people, some Moors. Whereas there's quite a few Moors who have gotten things with those corporate contracts, but then they did some proclamations and some court actions and things like that and liens, and they're keeping their, you know, their whatever they've done is being honored, you know. So I don't know what you all are seeing with regard to that, but that's what I'm seeing. Empress, did you want to say a little bit more about that and how that's going, or anyone who wants to chime in on whether they've had something taken that was gotten with a corporate contract, such as eviction, conveyances taken, etc. In some cases, you know, the corpses come back for that stuff. And, you know, I don't know how the ancestors choose which things they're going to come back for and which things they're not going to come back for. But what I do know is that, you know, it does happen occasionally. So we want to have our eyes open, you know, as a nation for that also. And generally we hear about that kind of thing, where things, you know, where the corpses come back for things. And I'm not sure whether whether that's because there's a contract out there somewhere, or whether it's energy related, or what it is. I don't know. I don't know how that is how the ancestors choose which things to test the Moors on. Where I'm concerned, I was tested with jail. And I think most know how that turned out. Of course, the ancestors came through us and spoke through us and did all that they did because we stand. Whenever we stand on our sovereign status, the ancestors are going to honor that in the way that they do. It's not the same for everybody, So that's just kind of something to keep in mind, because we want to keep our eyes open and not be, we don't want to have on rosy glasses. We need to be prepared, So I think it's, I'll be even more blunt and honest about, because I try not to. There are some things that I reserve from saying simply because I don't want it to be taken the wrong way. But it's getting clearer and clearer to me that, as a nation, we're maturing, we're rising, and we don't have to shield one another from things in order to tiptoe around and walk on eggshells with one another, because we need to know, we need to be prepared. What I'm seeing, and again, not everyone sees things the same way. Our third eyes and first eyes work differently. But what I'm seeing is, in some cases, when testing comes, that some Moors get really bent out of shape about Moors being tested. And we can't really, testing is a part of being the heirs. It's a part of that, Some Moors have sat in a cell for over a year. Others for less than that, for, weeks. And some for only a day or two, and some have never been sitting in a cell. They've been tested in other ways, such as evictions and things like that. And it's important that we clear our energies when we're demonstrating, and we actually have to clear our energies every day. And I'm not saying that people who go through those tests haven't cleared their energies, because we do clear our energies. But what I am saying is that it's important that before, during, and after testing like that, that we determine in our hearts and minds that no matter what test we're faced with, we're still going to stand. We're going to stand, and we're going to be ourselves. Period. I do see, that energy clearing makes the testing a lot easier. And in fact, it actually turns the testing to our advantage when we clear energy during the testing. Some people get angry during testing. Some people want to fight back and war back during testing. That's only making them miserable. The clearing of the energies is going to make all the difference in the world with regard to how the test. Empress, I'm muting you just because you're coming up on the sound meter, if that's you, Empress. But what I'm seeing is that, for example, and I can only speak on, you know, my own test from recently even. I could have gotten mad and angry about a POW camp, but I know what clearing energy is, and I know that anytime we're tested, it's because the ancestors want to show us something. So sometimes people get angry and upset about the testing. We can't be distracted by emotion, because we cannot govern by emotion. I remember when the subject, Donald Trump, was, you know, running for his presumed whatever he was running for, because we know they're not government, but people were saying that he's so volatile that he might push the red button, so somebody needs to take the red button away. You know, the button that causes nuclear bombs and things to go off, or et cetera, which doesn't really exist. But they were saying they need to take the red button from him because he's volatile, you know. We cannot govern by emotion. And when something happens, we have to look for whatever it is that the ancestors are trying to show us through that event, whatever that event is. It's only going to make the event easier for us to deal with. And in fact, it won't even be something that we're dealing with. It'll be something that turns out to be a blessing for us. I know when that whole POW camp event, both of them, because I've been there twice when demonstrating Moorish nationality. And once in 2017, and then again about, what is it now, 2 months ago, February the 8th. And, you know, those events, I would not be as determined as I am if I had gotten angry and decided to get mad about being tested. There's going to be things that we need to see that's going to make us better and stronger and faster, and it will insulate us from that test in the future. And that's why we can't get all emotional and bent out of shape when we see other Moors being tested and all of that, because yes, Empress Alessandra, I would still be there if I was angry about being tested instead of listening for the voice of the ancestors within me and demonstrating and thinking clearly through the obstacle course, because that's what it really kind of felt like. It felt like a military obstacle course. I've been in the Air Force previously, and many of you have been in the military in some way previously. It felt like I was going through a spiritual and a metaphysical and a judicial and an emotional obstacle course. And I had to determine that I was going to be victorious in going through that. So the testing sometimes, like I know that some of us, many of us, have seen Moors be taken right on the spot. Many of us have witnessed that, whether it be on video or whether it be in person, in propria persona sui juris, or whether it be, Moors having their windows smashed, or whether it happened to us. And the reason that some of the testing looks so violent, and it can be violent, I'm not minimizing that, is because when we volunteer to come here and be tested, it was such that we had to decide that, okay, we know we're going to be tested. So, you know, no matter what the circumstances are, no matter what the subject matter is, because, see, that's really the most important thing with testing, is it doesn't matter what the subject matter is. The subject, and I'm not minimizing it again. You know, I could have, when I was being tested, I could have said, you know, they shouldn't have done this and they shouldn't have done that because I'm an heir and blah, blah, blah. I could have gone that route. That's not a healthy route to take. You know, and those who take that route, you just make yourself miserable. We're going to be tested. That's a part of why we're here. Are we fit to govern? And if things can just throw you out of whack, you know, if testing can just throw you out of whack so quickly and so easily, you know, then that has to be observed and it has to be cleared and looked at and studied and all of that, so that that doesn't happen to you, because there's going to be more tested around you all the time. When I was taken to the POW camp, and this is what I just absolutely loved about that too, and about the Moors here, is one of the Moors here said, we don't have to do anything like and free herself. That actually, that's the truth. They didn't have to do anything. They didn't have to send any paperwork. They didn't have to pull bonds. They didn't have to look for anything, because I know that we have to stand sovereign. That's what sovereign means. Sovereign is the supreme ruler. How are you the supreme ruler if when something happens to you, it takes 45 people sending 56-page written affidavits for you, speaking for you, attempting to speak for you? You know, and some may not agree with that, but it's just the hard facts and the plain truth. We have to be competent to speak and stand. No matter what our test is, we have to be competent to stand. And with the clearing of the energies, I can assure you, without a doubt, that the ancestors will give you everything you need, and we already have everything we need, no matter what the test is. See, the ancestors won't test us if we're not ready, unless we refuse to clear some energy. And if there's some energy that we refuse to clear, then sometimes they send that test and say, okay, you want to clear that energy, because tests get hard for those who don't want to clear the energy. It's just the truth. It's just the truth.
Islam, please.
Islam.
I would like to interject just a little bit about the driver's license thing.
Mm-hmm.
The financial institution where we are here in Central Territory kept advising they needed a driver's license, and those have been rescinded on our part and expired. And what we had to end up doing is following the actually sending them a certified letter of reference to United States Title 18 U.S.C. and telling them of our intent to start criminal and legal prosecution through the Attorney General reference, them requiring a fraudulent act on a non-U.S. citizen. And they sent us a county evasive, but in the future some things are going to be changing, that they're going to accommodate foreign accounts and whatnot, and that took care of the problem for us dealing with DL requirements or whatever with that institution. So reference the Empress on that about IDs.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a pretty good option for us, telling them they're required to follow that because they're FDIC. And it says, in the absence of a driver's license, and a birth certificate. I'm sorry, in absence of a national ID, they use a driver's license or a birth certificate. And what we were yes, and what we were presenting them on the front is the national ID. And by them being FDIC insured, that's a federal requirement. They're required to honor that, and they weren't doing that, and that had to be called to their attention, which cleared up quite a bit of leeway on that. That's all I want to interject. Islam.
Thank you for that, nobility.
Yes.
Islam. That's awesome, because with no matter what they put out there, there's always going to be a window that we can look into the law and activate that window for ourselves. What he was referring to is Article 1508 on the U.S. Department of Justice website that states that the birth certificate, the Social Security card, or the driver's license and the passport are in the absence of a national ID. And that's a code that we can decapitalize and take with us wherever we go. Right, Justice Gio, that's so true. The United States, not even the Republic, can issue a national ID card, because they're not a nation either. The corporation certainly can't, because that's a court. But not even the ones that are saying we're part of the Republic, they can't even issue a national ID, because you got to be a nation to do it. And that ought to tell us what everyone's waiting on. We have to issue that. And that's the direction that we're moving towards right now. We have to issue that on a massive scale. And that's what's being, that's where we're going, is national IDs have to be out there, and they have to come from the heirs. And in other words,
that is awesome. We get to see more smashed windows.
That might seem, yeah, you will get a subject ID card. You'll get a subject ID card, and that will come from us too. So,
more smashed windows.
Well, I hope that your window's not smashed, because we don't want that happening to anyone on our land, and if you're properly documented, it won't happen to you. So, and you'll need to, invoke the Constitution, because, that's what's necessary on the land. But I think that, the subjects, I think they already know. I think they're aware. And so, Article 1508, and then even in the USC code, there are codes that can be decapitalized and decolonized and put in red and all lowercase letters that say that we don't have to do those things. That we actually should have a national ID. We should. We have to. Now, that might seem like it might seem like a huge task, but it's really not that big. It's the system that we're awakening, that we're reactivating. And when the system is reactivated, just like Empress Shade was saying, the system will give the subjects the proper documentation to be on the land in subject status, not in corporate status. And that has everything to do with the laws and proclamations that we put out there. And that's why we make it our business to put things on the public record. That's why we make it our business to do that. It's so that the subjects can get in alignment Because, again, everything that they're doing is based on our level of overstanding and competence. The more competent we become, and that's an ongoing thing. The grand rising is continuous. The more competent we become, the more in alignment they're going to get with what we're doing. And competence for us includes energy. It includes energies. So, you know, that's why their IDs do have, for the most part, the 1 star on them, because they're getting in alignment with what we're doing. And then as we continue, they'll start, that system that we have uncovered and taken the corporate covering off of will do what it's supposed to do. You know, so it won't be a whole bunch of stuff for us to do in terms of that. The things that we're supposed to be doing have everything to do with us and making sure we have proper IDs and that we're speaking with one voice and that we're using government letterhead and all of that. That's our job. That is what we do. You know, it's saving ourselves. And when we save ourselves, everything and everyone else is going to be saved. In the process of saving ourselves, there is testing that's going on for us, and it's a part of, you know, it's a part of preparation. We're already governing. We were doing that in our sleep. And the thing about it is, the thing about testing is that there's nothing happening in testing that wasn't happening before. When we were asleep, people were still being thrown in jail and evicted. It's just that now we know how to get out of that. And I'll say this too, you know, sometimes when you know, we put suggestions out there, but we don't know what each and everything that the Moors do. We don't know each and everything that the Moors do. So there could be a Moor and they'll say, I did this, I did this, I did that. We still don't know each and everything that's been done. We do know that our ancestors know what they're doing. When I went to the POW camp, the ancestors knew exactly what they were doing when I went there. Both times. I was being tested. I was being tested. Not all of us will be tested that way. But see, the ancestors know that no matter what happens, I'm going to stand, period. That's not even a consideration. And all of us must be prepared to stand at all times. And not just prepared, we must be standing, period. And the more we get that in our spirit about testing and about how it is necessary for us to be tested. It's necessary for us to be tested. Why? Because governing is that's not for the untested. You can't govern just by saying, well, you know, I'm an heir. Well, that won't teach you how to govern. What will teach you how to govern is learning how to govern and then being tested on what you learned. That's what teaches you how to govern. It's not just, you know, you making a statement saying, I'm an heir, so I shouldn't, you know, everything is already mine. That's true. But competent heirs will be tested on what they know so that as we continue to govern, we don't go back to sleep. That's what testing is all about, is are we prepared to stand for the next 150 or 1,000 or into perpetuity? Are we ready for that? And would you turn your vast estate over to someone and you don't know whether they're going to stand or not all it takes is for somebody to knock on the door and they done gave the whole estate back. So, you know, we have to stand, period. I was talking to one of the heirs yesterday who is incarcerated. Now, some of the heirs have been incarcerated. We know this already. It was widely broadcast. 6 million blacks have been, you know, and we know we're not black. But some of the heirs that have been in there for 20 and 25 years, they sit comfortably in there, and it's not comfortable by any means. But when I say that, nobody is throwing them in the hole and doing and testing them until they start demonstrating their sovereign status. They find out who they are, and they start demonstrating their sovereign status. I was talking to one of the heirs yesterday, and as soon as he started demonstrating his sovereign status, they threw him in the hole. He was out within a day, you know, and he was able to call, and we talked about what he was going through, you know, because that's what we're here for, is to hear one another and to assist one another. And, you know, I was telling him the same thing that I'm telling you now. Yes, we're going to be tested, because as we stand and as we continue to stand, there'll come a time where, you know, no one will be able to put us anywhere like that as a nation. They can't put us there now, but some find themselves there. I was there too. But there'll come a time in this testing and in this that we're doing where, for example, our heirs, some of them are going to know some things where no one will be able to touch them, and they have to know how to deal with that energy, because that's a whole nother set of energies right there. You know, I've seen one or two more in my time that I've been awake who, when they got a little bit of freedom, they went crazy, and ancestors had to rein them back in with some testing. Whereas others test beautifully, and they remain humble, and they continue their study, and things seem to get easier and simpler, and they keep rising, etc. It has everything to do with energy and, you know, and honesty, being honest about what really happened. Because, see, when we get tested, we can look back at our tests and see where we, you know, the ancestors will always let us know where we may have done something that we could have done a little differently, whether it be energetically or otherwise. The ancestors always let us know that, okay, this could be, and they're generally telling us while it's happening. We just have to, you know, hear them, listen and hear. Yes, Justice Geo in the chat. When we know, he says, when we know that we create all so-called situations because we are the causer of everything. Yes, we are. And some don't want to believe that. They want to think that the hybrids are just lawless. They're just lawless. No, no. There's something going on with us where the ancestors say, okay, now it's time for this test. Now it's time for that test. That's not a reason to get upset. It's a reason to look carefully at what's happening. Because, again, we cannot govern with emotion. And that's actually what we're being prepared, so that when things happen, we're not shaken out of our seat and shaken off of our square. Yes, Empress Alessandra. That's actually the key right there, because the emotion is ego driven, and some may argue with that, but it's the truth. The emotion that says I'm in error and I shouldn't be tested, or they're in error and they shouldn't be tested. That's ego. And the sooner we let that energy go and allow the ancestors to do whatever process they want to do with us, they're going to protect us. They're going to look out for us. Not one hair on our heads will be harmed when we let go of that ego piece and just let the ancestors do whatever it is, whatever testing, while we study and while we continue growing together as a nation. That's just the way this is. And the sooner we accept that the heirs shall be tested, because we shall, all of us, we've been there. The sooner we accept that, the less emotional and upsetting it will be, so that we, it'll be a lot less upsetting, which then makes the testing easier. It makes the testing easier. It's the same thing they say about karma. Karma is not what happens to you, it's your response to what happens to you. That's what they say. We say we're just being tested by the ancestral energy. And, I am finding in the testing portion, I'm finding in the testing portion that the sooner we're at peace in the test, the sooner the test ends. The minute we can find peace in that test, we're out of there. The ancestors will say, okay, you're out. But if we keep worrying about it, and we're being tested, and we worry and worry and worry, then the test lingers. It lingers, and then the thing that we have created in our minds tends to manifest. And that's why peace is so important. We have to practice peace. We have to be the peace. And the sooner, the better for us. Islam, because the warring because all of that's happening in the mind. In the mind. So, even when it comes to, because we started this conversation talking about IDs. We can have all the right documents and IDs, but if our energy is not clear and clean and we're continuously cleaning it, because nobody's going to be perfect, we're just going to keep clearing and cleaning. Then once we're clearing and cleaning the energy, the ID will do what it's supposed to do because it's in alignment with our energy. The documents will do what they're supposed to do because it's in alignment with our energy. So with regard to the ID, in red and all lowercase letters. When we know better, we do better. Are there any other questions or comments about that? Justice Jill, do you want to say a little bit about what because you're putting quite a few things in the chat. Yes. Some don't believe that, Justice Jill, that everything happens in the mind and nowhere else. It starts there. Islam.
Well, I put that there because, when you test it, you see it works. If you don't test it, you won't know it works. But everything because man is mind. And people that like movies and stuff, go watch The Matrix and see the green screen with stuff running up and down it. That's really all. That is only put there as a visual reference because we really don't see anything. We mind everything. Mind is a noun, and minding is the verb. That's how we live and move and do everything, because that's what we are. We're life, minding ourselves.
Islam. Mind and mental. Govern mental. Same thing. This is all about governing our mental, and we're all saying the same thing. We're saying the same thing here. When things happen, how do you govern your mental? Does ego step in and say, that shouldn't have happened, that shouldn't have happened? Or do we look at it and see it for what it really is, that which makes us better? The universe conspires for our good. That means the universe is looking for ways to be good to us. It doesn't always look like what we've been programmed for it to look like. Some people think that it's supposed to be, you know, we wake up, we're the heirs, and we just put our feet up and eat bonbons and live in a palace and don't have to do anything. Islam, nobility. But we do have to do, see, the ancestors can only work through us in this dimension. And that's why they honor, every time we honor them, they honor us right back. Right back, every second of the day. They do, without a doubt. And honoring them is having peace on the inside and not warring, because war means confusion. And if we're confused about why we're here and we're thinking that we're not supposed to be tested, then we're kind of going to be in for a shock.
You are really insane.
You know what I'm saying? We're going to be in for a shock every time we're tested. We're going to get shocked every single time, or every single time we see someone else tested. We're going to be shocked. Oh, that shouldn't have happened. Oh, my goodness. Meanwhile, those who know why we're here, that's what the grand rising is. How do we rise? How do we even know we're rising if we're not tested? How do we know we're rising if we don't do better each time? How do we know that? This time when I went to the POW camp, I did so much better than I did the first time because I knew how to do court actions right off the top of my head. Just right, you know, straight out of the mind. The court actions came. The Latin came. The French came. The Turkish came. The ancient English came. The fasting came. But that has everything to do with what I do in my daily life, my daily demonstration. That's going to determine how you test. What are you doing in your daily life and your daily demonstration and your daily study? That's going to determine how you test. And you want to test in a manner that says that you're rising. Now, I'm not perfect in that. I'm not perfect. There's some things when I look back on what I went through, there's a couple of things that I think, oh, I probably could have done a little better on that, but I did the best that I've ever done. Let me put it that way. And that I'm not saying I want to go back again and do the test again. If I did it, I would know what to do. But, you know, our ancestors know what they're doing. They know what they're doing. And so, you know, let's not get so bent out of shape when testing comes. Let's not do that, because that's, you know, that's a practice that we need, and that's a suggestion, because I can't tell sovereigns what to do. But as a suggestion, I would suggest that, you know, that we practice not getting bent out of shape when things happen, so that we can see and learn from whatever it is that either we're going through or our brothers and sisters are going through. I'm learning to be very calm when people are being tested. Be calm, and when all of the emotion dies down, they'll be able to see exactly what happened with that test, so that they know what to do next. How to get themselves, you know, how to free themselves from whatever may be going on with that test. And generally, just from talking to Moors, I can hear in their language where there may be something that might be able to assist them in terms of, okay, work, you know, as a suggestion, you may want to look at this, or you may want to work on that. You know, and usually it's just language. Language, and knowing that we're not any name in all caps, because sometimes I hear Moors who whenever something is sent to a court, they'll say, well, they sent me something. They sent me this, or they sent me that, and I'm thinking, no, that's not you. That's not you. And every single Moor that I've ever spoken with, who's ever been tested, I don't care whether it was an eviction or them going to jail or being pulled over, or them having to demonstrate based on some mailings that came to the mailbox. Every Moor that I've ever talked to, everyone knew that a test was coming. They knew. They could feel that something big or something was about to happen. And in some cases, they went ahead and invoked and made it happen sooner. Our ancestors know what they're doing, and they never test us unawares. They never test us without telling us first. Even if it's just saying, you know, they'll tell us about energies. Hey, you need to work on that energy, clear that energy. And if we just act like, well, you know what, I'm not clearing that energy because they get on my nerves and all of that, then, you know, then the test comes still. Because we're going to be, you know, we're going to be tested. But we're protected during the testing. That's the main point that I want to make about testing. We're protected through the testing. Always. Always. In fact, I've not known of any Moors who had any broken bones or anything during testing. Yes, some got rustled around a little bit and, you know, finger bent or, you know, arm bent back or, you know, things like that, but no broken bones and no loss of life. You know, unless they consent to loss of life.
I want to see smashed windows.
Again, you know. So, you know, it's just a matter of how we agree that within us that we're going to be tested, because everyone's going to be tested. It's up to us to determine and work out what that's going to look like. the sooner we're at peace, and the sooner we determine that we're going to stand, I don't care what, because see, in the past we used to say, you know, we used to sign whatever it is that they said, you better sign this, we would sign and say threat, duress, and coercion. Well, we're not everyone, but many of us are elevating above that and saying, I'm not signing it because there's no threat, duress, and coercion that's going to make me sign. And I know when I stand and I don't sign that trash, that the ancestors are going to honor the energy. And I'm not speaking from something I don't know. I'm speaking from something that I do know and that I've done. And I showed you all the documents. Not one time did I sign anything, none of that. And yes, they had weapons. I'm not signing it because our ancestors already know what they're doing. I trust them within me. And I just peacefully do a court action and let them do the rest. And they came rushing in. And I'm not so special that I'm the only one that they're rushing in for. They're rushing in for all of us when we stand. Period. You know. And don't get bent out of shape. Because see, we can't, I know that when we see other Moors tested, some of us get bent out of shape, but we can't help them with that energy. Even if we say, well, we'll help you do this and we'll help you do that. If you're bent out of shape because they got tested, you can't help them because you're not going to add any energy that they need. You won't add any helpful energy until you clear your energy. You can't help yourself in your testing if your energy is not clear. And energy clearing is something we can practice all day, every day, period. We have to, I'm just telling you, we're filters. We are sovereign filters. And we have to clear through so that we can hear. All of the answers that we need are right out there, right in the atmosphere, waiting for us to call them forth. Are there any other questions about that? Comments or anything? Okay, I just took something off the screen. I wanted to make a quick announcement about it as well. On the day of the full moon of this month of April, at 7 p.m. Eastern, that's a Monday, April 26th, we will be having a symposium, a sovereign investment symposium. All Moors are invited. And an investment symposium by the sovereign heirs means that there will be absolutely no fiat allowed, no Federal Reserve debt notes allowed at all. So come, all Moors are invited. We're very excited about what the ancestors are doing, and the information is on the screen. It'll be on the same platform, and we're going to be introducing, for the first time that we know of, because I haven't seen it anywhere, but for the first time that we know of, we're going to be introducing some financial the reset, essentially. And there are Moors out there who have done some things where finance is concerned, where gold-backed finance is concerned. We're not talking about fiat. We're talking about gold-backed sovereign finance. and we honor them, and we don't want to take anything from what they've done. We'll be introducing it from our study and what we know as well. So we're excited about that because it's something that all Moors can demonstrate and participate in, because we put a lot of study, a lot of work in on what we're doing, and we need to get the sovereign commerce going, and so we're going to go for that. So all heirs are invited to come. Are there any other questions, comments, or updates in terms of the territories, etc.? And also, the Moors who are doing commerce already, it may take a little bit of programming, deprogramming and reprogramming, because we've been meagerly getting by using the system that's, you know, in its, the system that's going out with the Piscean era. And now we're the system that is here and activated for the Aquarius era, the age of Aquarius. That system is a system that we are going to take full advantage of because it belongs to us. So that's the point of where we're going and all of that. So it's going to take some reprogramming for you to you know, come on into and do what needs to be done in terms of switching to the new system. But it won't take much. It's not difficult. It's something that we can all do. We've actually been doing it already. Every time we signed something, we were activating our sovereign status. We just did not know it. So we'll be discussing all of that. And it's a process that we've been working on for about since 2017. But we'll be giving you the details at that time. You don't need to bring anything, just yourself. You're fine. Are there any other questions, comments, etc.? Any questions or comments about where we're going? And hopefully, Empress Shade, that did help clear some things up with regard to the ID. If you Google state IDs or Real ID Act, you will see photos of a lot of those quote-unquote state IDs that have been issued that have the 1 star on them. Okay, so I wanted to make sure that we clear that up as well. Any other? Islam.
Just some current information. I don't know how many people are aware of it because it is kept very quiet in the mainstream news. But one by one, the states, so-called, starting in the south, are telling the so-called federal government and CDC and everything that you're not going to impose any travel passport on us, and we're not going to insist that the people wear any masks. That is something that you can mandate for the people who you can mandate to. That is Texas, Florida, and I think Wisconsin is the other one that, and there are more doing it today. Those are all by last night. Few other things that are happening, like people that mandating.
Can you speak up just a little bit, Justice? Can you speak up just a little bit?
Okay, is that better?
Yeah.
Yeah, if few other things to look at is if people are being told they have to take whatever the dang test they want to do in order to go to work, or to have to take a vaccine if they want to go to work. All people have to do is study a little bit and then stand on their square. There's no special thing but standing for who you are. Just like if you walk in the store and you see everybody wearing a mask and they tell you got to put one on, and you just keep walking and go about your business. When you go to work, if they try to do anything, and you shouldn't be going to work anyway, you should be working out ways to figure how to operate and control your estate. You already own it. You've always owned your estate. You just have to figure how to control it. We have been taught that owning stuff has anything to do with anything, when in fact, own nothing, control everything is the mantra that anybody, even the ones that stole all the stuff, that's the way they control it. They don't claim to own it, they just control it. We have to do that, and we do that with our mind. That's why government is so important. Govern, G-O-V-E-R-N, is to control. And that's in Latin, in ancient Latin too. Ment is mind, M-E-N-T, or M-E-N-T-A, which is why amenta is so important, because amenta, which is below from where we stand, that's where the mind is. The mind isn't up there somewhere, it's down there. We are flipped mentally. That's why we haven't caught on to that yet. But just so you know, check it out, you'll find that's how it works. Islam.
I'll say this too about that whole mask thing. That's going to be a test for some. We're getting to the point, many more, and some are not at this point yet, but some are, where either we stand in our sovereign status and tell them that we're not going to do this or that because it's against what we, our ability to govern ourselves is against that. Or we can, some are giving in to everything they say. That's going to be a test for some. That's going to be a test. The ones who are doing whatever those people say, the occupation, if we're doing whatever they say, then it's never going to turn out the way we want it to turn out. If you're doing what they say just to keep a job, you'll lose the job. At some point, you'll lose it. I'm seeing that all across the board. Because that's just where we are in this whole great tribulation piece. Is if we sell out, and there's a way to assert that without a loss of resources. There's a way to do it without a loss of resources, but we do have to proclaim in our minds and in our hearts that no matter what, we're going to stand. Exactly, and that's actually where I'm going, Empress Alexandra, in the chat. She put in the chat, taking the vaccine can cost you your life. If they can get you to wear a mask, then when they say, okay, masks ain't helping, everybody needs to take a vaccine. Then what? And then they'll say, well, vaccines are not helping. You still need to wear a mask, and you got to get a second vaccine. And in fact, you have to take a vaccine for every week for the next year. Then what? What are you going to do? We have to determine in our hearts and in our minds that no matter what's going on, we're going to stand and be ourselves and not bend to that madness, because it's madness. And now they're saying, and this is something that I heard from one of the hybrids, that even though they got their vaccines and they're wearing their masks, that now there are variants that are showing up that are vaccine resistant, so they're going to have to come up with a new vaccine and wear 2 masks, etc. And it's like, okay, how much bending over are you going to do? You know, and I'm just saying because that's what it is. They're saying that there are you know, many more variants, etc. You know, and I'm not validating that or invalidating it. But how much, you know, at what point do we say, no matter what happens, I'm going to be myself? I'm going to govern my affairs, not them. They don't get to speak into my life and tell me this or that. Period. I'm the government. You're the government. More. You're the government. So govern or be governed. That's where we are now. In the ancient writings, it says that he who seeks to save his life will lose it, but he who lays it down will keep it. In other words, don't be bending over for that. There's, you know, don't sell out for what they say, because it's not worth it. It's not worth it, because the more you bend to what they say, the more they're going to require you to bend. Then it's going to get ridiculous, and they're going to tell you, don't come out your domicile. Don't come out at all. Stay in there. If you need food, don't matter. Stay in there. We're not trying to do all of that. That's not happening. That's not happening. Not. So that's why when the mask thing first came out, we just went ahead and put out a video on YouTube at that time. That's been about over a year ago, saying we're not wearing them. It's not, and pointed straight to the Constitution. And we don't wear them. So there's only so much of bending and trying to do what they say in order to get a little something. The bowl of porridge, it's a wrap on the bowl of porridge. It's time for the whole estate to manifest right now. It's time for the entire estate to manifest right now. So, you know, and some are taking it slow, and that's okay. You know, some are going to bend until they can't bend anymore, and then they'll take a stand. And that's okay, too. There's nothing wrong with however you want to govern your estate is how you do it. Do what's best for you. That's why we don't tell Moors what to do. We make suggestions, and then we do things the way, yes, it is already manifested. It's right in front of us. That's why, you know, why bend? Why? So if there are, we have to stand, period. We have to stand. It's time. Are there any other questions or comments or any other wisdom that that anyone has and wants to?
Yeah, what are you going to wear to jail next time, Pauline?
Any wisdom? Wisdom. Okay. Islam, peace and grand rising to the sovereign, original, indigenous, natural, divine heirs, and we will meet again on Sunday.
Grand rising.
Grand rising, Empress.
Grand rising.
Grand rising.
Light and love.
Grand rising.
Gratitude. Light and love.
Islam, peace.
I'll see you in hell.
Islam.
You're being held by yourself.
Long live the empire.
Yes, long live the empire indeed. Islam.